Hello, welcome to a new edition of 3 Deep. This is the kickoff classic time because this is before the season starts. Preseason's done. We've been through all that. The rosters are cut. The rosters are set. And by the way, did you hear? We have a new quarterback.
Who? Quarterback?
I'm guessing that you probably have. Yeah, that's Joe just quibbling. He must have surprised him. I don't know, but
I hadn't heard. Yes, the Vikings do have a new quarterback. Holy cow! Big news of the week.
Yeah, it certainly is. Joe, what do you think?
It's really strange because I got a text from my buddy, and I haven't talked to him for a few years, and he was pretty angry about what we had given up for him and the fact that it was Bradford in the first place. So I started out kind of in a negative space, saying, why did we give up a first-round pick? And then when I calmed down a little bit and kind of looked into his season last year, I kind of did a complete 180 and am actually pretty excited. I'm not going to lie.
Wow, complete Wasserwanga. You backed up
the way back. I have no credibility.
It's interesting. Before I came over to tape this podcast with you guys, I was back and forth with a buddy of mine who actually works for the Cardinals out in Arizona. He used to work with the Timberwolves with him, and he's a Packer fan, so yeah. Could you hear Skolt on that? And right away he said, he's testing whether or not I'm a Viking apologist or an actual journalist, and saying, now, he says, you've got to admit they paid way too much for this, and on and on. I said, yes, Vikings paid too much, and you would get Rick Spielman to be the first one to admit it. But the fact of the matter is, it was the blood, his quote, the blood is in the water.
I'm just going to say that.
Blood in the water. They knew. He knew that when he talked at the fourth preseason game. He came and talked to all the media, and he said at that time the price is really high. I'm hearing some bizarre offers out there.
Laughable was the quote I saw. And
they knew. And everybody that had a good backup all of a sudden just grabbed a little tighter and said, I'm going to see what I can get out of the Vikings for him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for him to get a starting quarterback,
definitely,
who was former number one draft choice overall, former Heisman Trophy winner, and the word is that he's never had that great of a team around him.
For sure,
he's done okay.
Yeah,
he's done okay despite coming off 2 ACLs. You could call him certainly fragile because he had been hurting quite a bit in his career, but. This was a win for the Vikings, and there was an article that I saw online today talking to all the execs around the league that said every one of them, for the most part, maybe not everyone, said they would have made the same deal, whether they were on the Philadelphia side or the Vikings side. They were going to make you give till it hurt, to get them, but they had to do it.
I mean, there's 8 days before the season starts, you lose your starting quarterback. Obviously.
You're just hoping to get anything.
Completely desperate is the word, and people, I think, latched on to the quote from Spielman where he said, I'm not going to mortgage the future of the team, and then they felt like he did. Personally, I've never been a really big draft pick guy. I think people overvalue a lot of draft picks. Yeah, granted, Spielman is a amazing draft
Well, it's funny
guy.
You should say that when he talked to the media about that and said the same thing, I'm not going to mortgage the future, he immediately said after, I'm not going to trade away one of these young, talented players I have. That was more on his mind. He did have some draft picks. He had 10 going in before he made this trade. Now he's got 8 left, and several of them with right around the 3rd and 4th round spot.
Yep.
Which people say allowed him to trade up into the first round. But if the Vikings do well with this, that first-round draft choice they've given up, it's going to be in the late 20s.
For sure.
Even
and you have a coach that brings his rookies in slow anyway, and there's no guarantee that they're going to do anything. And looking at bringing the first-round draft pick next year, how slowly they are brought along, and what our window of opportunity is, the fact that Bridgewater could be out for 2 years. And Adrian Peterson probably has 2 good years left in him. I think the team realized that, we still have this window of opportunity. We have to go for it. And I think it was pretty amazing to turn a lot of the fan base around from complete just depression to excitement within, 4 or 5 days.
I wrote a story for Vikings Journal yesterday. I'm starting off by saying I've never been the biggest Sam Bradford fan. I just haven't been. I don't know why. Maybe it's because he got that last big contract before they changed the CBA, and then he kind of fell into that. And now he's falling into this, as I said in the story, high performance Ferrari or whatever, and it's just revving. It's just revving the engine, waiting for him to jump behind the seat and take off. But the fact of the matter is, they were going to get. It was going to be a high cost. They had no choice. And, people talk about the draft picks. Is it too much? Yes. But that first rounder, if it is in that high 20 range, that was right where Johnny Manziel was taken a couple of years ago. So they're not all guaranteed to get you. It's not going to be a top 10 pick. It's where you get your higher guarantees. So then there's Jamarcus Russell, who's taken first overall. So there's no guarantees. You can say whatever you want, but Scott, what do you think?
Well, exactly. Draft picks are always unproven, and they have to come in and they have to prove themselves. Some guys do, some guys don't. It is hit or miss. And if we do what we want to do, and if Bradford can take us where we want him to take us at the quarterback realm, and our defense stepping up and running well, we're going to we'll do great. That draft pick for the first round will be deep in the and we're hoping obviously that it's number 32, meaning that we've won the whole thing. And in that scenario, that's fine. When people say mortgaging the future, to me, I think of the bigger trades when you've had teams over the years trading away a couple of first-rounders and second-rounders or things like that. Nothing as gross as what Mike Lynn did to us way back, and we're not even going to bring that one up anymore. But when you trade, multiple picks and or players, when we're just trading two draft choices to get Bradford, that's not mortgaging the future. So people, if you're thinking that, I'm going to tell you you're wrong. That's not mortgaging the future. We picked up, like you said, Bradford was a number one first-round draft choice, Heisman Trophy winner. We traded a number one to get someone who is a number one. Now, he hasn't lived up to that much hype, and the injuries certainly play a part of that. You mentioned, Joe, that the teams he's been on have not been that strong. Being in the Rams of St. Louis and then last year in Philadelphia, he's been in some tumultuous situations. They've changed offensive coaches and styles.
I couldn't believe that stat.
It's crazy. He's been in the league 6 years and he's had to make 5 changes. That's crazy. Nuts. And poor guy, to his credit, and I like that he said this when he came over. He's like, at least my career I've had to learn new systems all the time, so I'm used to doing this, right, which should help him now in our scenario here. So I'm liking.
I get frustrated with people that say, that they've overspent in the futures mortgage and all that, because it is there's not a lot of room to join this team anyway, as we saw, and we'll get into later when they made the cut downs. You're not bringing in a lot of new blood because there's no place to go. They have 8 draft choices left for next season. They're lower rounds, yes, but they can put a couple together and he can move up to a higher round.
Spielman. I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up with a first round pick anyway. People, the 4th round pick is conditional, so if things go well, it could end up being a first and a second round pick, which I think bothers.
Second or third. Yeah.
Okay. The thing, I wrote an article today and on my site, Purple PTSD, and it'll be on Vikings Journal tomorrow because I'm too lazy to write a separate article. It's basically about what if.
We're going to talk about that, Joe.
Off air. Yeah. I'm scared. What if Bradford performs extremely well? Teddy was, despite what a lot of people think, Teddy wasn't solidified as the franchise quarterback. I think that the team did everything within their power this offseason to help Teddy get to the next level by fixing the offensive line, bringing in Sperano and Shermer to maybe get AP running out of the shotgun a little bit more because Teddy's really great out of the shotgun. So if he's out for one or 2 seasons and Bradford performs at a high level, what do you end up doing?
Good problem to have. I will take issue with one thing you said. I think in Zimmer's mind, he is the franchise quarterback. That's what Zimmer called him recently.
Yeah.
He said, my franchise, how was I supposed to know that my franchise quarterback was going to hurt his knee at practice and be lost for the season? He also said, I thought that I was going to have Teddy for my tenure as a Viking coach. And so that, I think in his mind, he was their guy. I think he was poised to make a really good jump this season. And, a lot of people were thinking that. And he looked good, especially. But that's all in our mind now. And what we're going to do is compare Bradford to what we thought Bridgewater is going to be. Bridgewater hasn't done it yet. He, like you said, he's not solidified. That's because he has not become that person yet. We think or they think he was going to become it. So that's going to be a tough comparison because everybody is going to say, well, Brad, if he does perform well, and Bridgewater comes back, there's going to be the whole tussle back and forth of which one's better, and we're all going to compare Bradford to what we thought Teddy was going to be this year, and that's kind of unfair.
Well, sure, and Skolbadiah, of course, has already proclaimed Teddy as our guy, so you can't discount Skolbadiah on the whole thing too. So
what did he say?
Well, remember, because he came to his birthday party and all that.
That's true.
So Skolbadiah, the kid who had Teddy, won't you come to my birthday? That whole thing. So, come on, Joe, got to catch up. Catch up on him. So,
I put him in my stories how many times, Joe? I guess you're not reading my stories.
My secret has been exposed.
But Joe did write a good article because I did read that. It's a long one, but it's certainly worth a read. So check out Purple PTSD and check out Vikings Journal, especially once he gets it on there. But even until he's on there, Joe Oberle has articles on Vikings Journal that you want to read. These are good stuff, folks, too. And they're not paying me to say any of this. I'm just saying it because I read them and I enjoy them and I like them. So please check those both out.
Can I get you a beer, Scott? No.
Just some more pop. I'll be fine there. So, but to Joe Johnson, to your point of if Bradford does well, what then? That's a great scenario. So we don't know how Teddy's going to heal up after. He's going to go under the knife this week. We've heard you're going to get that surgery and start the whole process for rehabbing. I think he's smart. I think he's healthy. I think he'll do everything right and how he's supposed to try to heal up. So I expect him to be ready to give it a shot next year in 2017. But quite honestly, and let me back up a step first of all. Earlier this year on 3 Deep, we've talked about the fact that we didn't have enough strength and depth at the QB position. So if we have Bradford and Bridgewater next year as our QBs, that's a good scenario. Maybe Shaun Hill sticks around as the third string guy then too. That would be a great 1-2-3 punch that most teams in the league would be salivating over.
And I know Spielman, I was listening to K-Fan earlier today, and PA said that he talked to Spielman, I think, at the Combine, and that Spielman was talking about picking up a young quarterback that they could develop maybe for like a backup position. That was his plan. He obviously didn't end up doing it. But I do want to say that probably 6 hours before Teddy went down, I posted an article that was titled, "I'll Admit It, Teddy is the Franchise." And basically, I just said it's a countdown for him to get injured, basically.
Thanks, Joe.
And so I don't have a lot of wood in my house to knock on, so it's just a really awful situation, and I don't get. I wish I knew exactly what happened or how he was injured, because you would think that if it was a non-contact injury, maybe there's something structurally wrong with his leg.
Could be.
From what I've heard, it's usually a tendon, like your ACL is loose or is just can't handle it or whatever. But I don't foresee him coming back next season. I mean, Spielman came out today and said that he doesn't know. Nobody knows, I think was his quote, when Teddy will come back.
No, they don't. They haven't even been in there to look at his knee and see the entire extent of the damage. They've seen plenty on an MRI, but until you get on the table, you don't know what you're going to find.
And I heard that if not for the Vikings trainers, Teddy could have actually lost his leg. Mm-hmm. So it's not just an ACL tear. I mean, I posted a X-ray of the similar, not his X-ray, but what the injury looked like, and it's catastrophic. So I think, bringing that back to Bradford, I think it was just a really good move. And, like you said, it is a good position to be in if we have two quarterbacks that compete at a high level. I don't think people are giving Bradford enough credit considering he played for the Eagles last year, which were a complete mess with Chip Kelly destroying the team from top to bottom and then getting fired. But, he in 14 games he put up 3,700 yards, 19 touchdowns, I think 9 or 10 interceptions.
I think it was 11.
Okay. Yeah, no.
It was more than that, actually. He was a hit. I want to say 14 maybe, but
I'm pretty sure it's 11. I'll look it up. But yeah, I think that Shermer obviously was the offensive coordinator for the Rams when they drafted Bradford. Then he was the offensive coordinator in Philadelphia. I don't know how much power he had there with Chip Kelly trying to run his goofy offense. But bringing him into this situation, it's a chance for him to fulfill a lot of the potential people thought he had. And if he stays healthy, I honestly think that it could be an upgrade at the position, considering.
The bottom line for me is before the season, there was all kinds of talk about the Vikings making the playoffs, potentially winning the division again, even though a lot of people picked the Packers. But they're also a sneaky pick for the Super Bowl. And when Teddy went down, those hopes were dashed. Well, when they signed Bradford, they now have a chance. They now have a chance to realize some of those aspirations that they had at the beginning of the season. And you don't have to take my word for it. I mean, the Vikings were 20-1 to win the Super Bowl with Teddy. When he went down, they dropped like 40. Now, after the signing of Bradford, they went back up to 20. So in their mind, they're right back to where they were. It's a tough price to pay, but they made lemonade out of lemons. You know, they got dealt a very bad blow, and you were going to have to overpay for a backup quarterback, or you could have sat and picked up Mark Sanchez or Michael Vick, and then you would be SOL. I mean, you know, Sanchez couldn't even beat out two rookies in Denver. So how good is he going to be? These guys went and got a starting quarterback who, given the chance, I mean, now we got to, you know, look ahead and project and speculate, but given the chance with one of the best running backs in the game behind him to take the pressure off, a better offensive line than we had here last year, and I think better than they have in Philadelphia, and a top 5 defense, this guy who is going to get the opportunity to really show what he's got.
Bradford for sure. This has to be, thinking from his perspective, and I don't know Sam at all, but how fantastic of a scenario. I mean, earlier he got a lot of crap when, you know, Philadelphia drafted Carson Wentz and whatnot, and he talked about wanting to trade, all that kind of stuff, and people gave him crap, and I think a little rightfully so in that respect. But now he's coming here to a great situation, just as you laid out there, Joe, with all the positives, the best scenario he's ever had. Who couldn't be motivated to come and want to do his absolutely best here?
He gets to take those
exactly
negative comments that everybody are saying right now and say, hey, listen, give me the opportunity. This is what I can do. He's got to be fired up as heck.
Oh, for sure. It is kind of an upgrade at the position, and not so much as a knock to Teddy, but just looking back last year, you know, I've heard it reported too. Last year, Teddy was an average quarterback. You know, the offensive line had its tumult. The defense played well. Adrian led the league in rushing. We won our division and made the playoffs. You know, you could have picked up just a
quarterback.
We could have just
average numbers anyway.
Average numbers. We could have done that with just about anybody that we picked up, but no. Spielman, to his credit, and I'm going to give him credit on making this move. Yes, we traded a number 1 away, but that's what you had to do. That's the price you had to pay to make this work, and he did it to bring in somebody who can take the reins. How fast, and that's going to be the question. How fast can you pick it up and really get in sync with the guys? That's, to me, one of the biggest challenge, because that plane just takes repetition, and there's only been a couple of days so far, and there's only a few more days before the first game, the next game, et cetera, to build that all up. But I think it's a fantastic opportunity, and kudos to Spielman.
You were right. It is 14 interceptions.
Thank you.
I do think that Norv and his son are salivating at the prospect of having a guy like Bradford throwing the ball. I mean, he's just got a way better arm than Teddy. I think he can make the throws that Norv
way better
likes. Yeah.
Okay.
I would say it's a lot better.
It's better. It's strong.
I mean, it depends on what your definition of way is. But you know, the fact that
that's a pretty vague term.
I suppose that's like Bill Clinton.
That's right.
Oh, I don't even know that.
But the fact that, you know, we and media, ESPN, are still talking about the Vikings going to the Super Bowl a week and a day after we were completely devastated. I mean, we had to record last week's podcast. It was like a wake. And now there's excitement. And, you know,
Skolt was wearing black last week. He was insane.
Yeah, with a lot of eulogies, and I just think that it's amazing that they did end up with a quarterback that the only hesitation I have is that he gets injured a lot, and so
I went out this week to Winter Park on Monday and to see what little we could see of him throwing, and you know, after spending the summer in Mankato and watching Hill throw against the wind, or sometimes with the wind, and see the receivers turn around and have to come back for the ball time and again, and see Stave miss high, miss low, miss wide, you know, and short. he was, granted it was just a passing drill and there was nobody rushing him, but everything he threw was hitting them, this is Bradford, was hitting the receivers in stride and in the hands. Now granted, I was looking for this. You heard he was accurate. You heard him, he's always been accurate in long throws. So I was looking for this, and he showed it. And that's a great thing. That's not would say one thing or the other against Teddy, but compared to what else is standing right now and playing for the Vikings,
yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's an upgrade, and it's going to be exciting to watch. Give this guy some time. He will pick defenses apart. He will, if they're going to put eight in the box against Adrian Peterson. He apparently gets rid of the ball pretty quick. He's going to find who he needs and get him the ball. They say he makes good decisions. What more do you want?
Yeah.
I'm excited to see how he does with a much better supporting cast. And as much as I've never been a big fan, like I said, I got to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm ready to roll with him.
What do you think about him starting on Sunday?
That's the big question, and I think we're seeing those games that they play right now out at Winter Park. Today they had both. They're both. Well, the depth chart came out, and Sean Hill's listed first and Bradford second. They're both splitting reps with the first team, and on Thursday, both quarterbacks are scheduled to talk. Usually, it's just the starting quarterback that talks on that part of that time of the week. So it's like they're.
Now that's gamesmanship, Zimmer. Way to go.
Exactly. Zimmer is definitely playing it. He doesn't want to play his hand until he has to, and I think he's going to go with at least throw it out there that it could be Sean Hill, but I think we'll see Bradford.
It is interesting to speculate, and we won't probably know until Sunday, I'm guessing. And, so we'll find out here, plug, insert, at the Mermaid when we're watching the game, when fans are gathering here with me, and we have it on the big screens here at the Mermaid, and you can come and join us. We'll all be checking that out and seeing what's all happening and who gets the start. I'm not too worried either way, kind of selfishly, and I'm thinking a little more long-term for the season because we're thinking Bradford's our guy now. You kind of want Bradford in there playing and getting those reps and getting prepped because the next two games on the schedule are tough. The home opener is a huge one, and that's an advantage to us, but it is still against our deathly rivals, the Packers. And then after that, we got to go down to Carolina, and those Panthers are tough too, and we know that. That's a road game. So you need Bradford up to speed to compete in those games as much as possible. And so that's why I guess I'm hoping he can get it up to speed and going. But you don't want him to overrush. You don't want him or the team to go in with just 20 plays because that's all he can run. Right. If that makes us too one-dimensional or something against Tennessee, because Tennessee won't be a pushover. Although I love that. That would be the best scenario. Is that if maybe we start Hill, we kick their butts, and then we can bring Bradford in and do some more, do all that.
What about the conspiracy along those lines? Because part of that, the conditions for that fourth-round pick with Philadelphia is that in order for it to go to a third-round pick, the Vikings have to make the playoffs next year. In order to go to a second round, they have to go to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. But Bradford's got to play 80% of the plays. Now, if they don't play him in this first game, maybe they won't play him so that they don't have to pay him later. I don't know.
Like how they didn't play Mobo, so no one would snipe him off the waiver wire. Hey. But yeah,
shameless plug by you right there.
I think that Hill should start. I mean, I just keep getting flashbacks of Josh Freeman throwing 56 times, basically like a schoolyard game.
You do have PTSD, don't you?
As
far as the Vikings are concerned,
I'm constantly having flashbacks.
I don't like that flashback.
I think that 7 or 8 days is just not enough time. And Bradford had a quote the other day about getting thrown into the fire. And considering Norv Turner's offense is relatively complicated, I just, like Skolt said, I don't want him to go out there with a set of, I heard on KFan, apparently I listen to KFan a lot, that they might have 50 plays for him, and 30 of them are handoff right and handoff left.
Yeah, it's the offense anyway.
It really is. I mean, I just...
What about Brett Favre? Now, he's not Brett Favre. I'm not saying that, but Favre came in here. He didn't go through any training camp. He came in a couple weeks.
He played a preseason game. against Kansas City. I was there.
Yeah, he did. What, 3 plays a series?
He got wrecked on the 3rd play, and it was over.
Yes, it was over. That's right. And he came in and all he did was manage the game in Cleveland, and he handed off right and handed off left, and AP went nuts.
Yeah.
So that's what they're going to do anyway. And they're going to give him a few. It could be. I think I have to stick with it because I've thrown it out there already in print, but. I think they'll get Bradford ready to go because the sooner you get him going, like Scott was saying, you want him ready to go for game 2. And
that's true.
Arch rival, and it doesn't get any easier after that with the Panthers right after that. So
yeah, I mean I don't disagree with you. I just worry about it a little bit, I guess. But I hear that he's an extremely intelligent guy, so I think he's going to be able to pick up things right away. Obviously, he's not going to have the entire playbook at his disposal, but. He'll figure it out, and I do want to see him play. I mean, I'm ordering his jersey already.
Are you serious?
I don't want to answer that question. I'm going all in, man.
I love it.
I was desperate last week.
Just anointed Teddy the
Fire it up, Joe. Get it. Yeah.
Just anointed Teddy the franchise last week, and suddenly, give me the new guy.
God, yeah. I mean, it's been a rough week.
Yeah, it has been. It's the crowds out there at Winter Park just to see all this stuff, and it's to be honest, in some ways it's standard operating procedure for the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, they are always making news. They are always doing something, and the things that happen to them are so unique. I mean,
that is very true. We have certainly had an interesting history. We could probably, and we'd have to research it to do it justice, all the different kind of stories that have happened and stuff. I did just want to ask you, though, have there been fans outside the Winter Park?
Not fans. I guess I'm talking about all the media.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I know the media's doing their things, but I remember the Brett Favre days when he showed up, and I was one of them outside standing across the street, and everything with the shield. I wasn't painted up for that one, but. Talking to Mark Rosen, though, and other press about that, and even Don Mitchell and some of those others, about what's going on, what we're thinking about the whole thing. And certainly this is not the same comparison to that. But when I was thinking about this after our last show, when we were talking about, who can we possibly find and the injury, we were, like Joe said, we were all kind of devastated. It's like there is that potential to make this kind of a bold move if you can find a willing trading partner to get somebody who's really good that could step in, similar to what we needed to do when we brought Favre in, because that was a team with a good defense. The running game was all there. We just needed a quarterback improvement. We went and got Brett, and that all worked. We had a fantastic year. Now, again, I'm not saying that Bradford's going to be like Brett. I'm not saying that at all. But he is a strong, good quality quarterback. 65% completion rate, last year. And in his last 2 full seasons, one of you mentioned throwing 3,700 yards. That's what he's done in his last 2 full seasons of play. Got to preface that because, of course, the injuries that he's had. But that's pretty productive play, in for a quarterback, and that's what you need. And if, as you said, Joe, if he can manage the game well enough, make enough of those plays to keep the running game honest and the defense honest on that, we're going to be a successful team. We're going to beat a lot of people, and we're going to be in that hunt.
I don't think you can fault the Vikings for making this move on any,
not at all.
On any form or fashion. I mean, there's nothing on. This one wasn't on their radar. It got mentioned. I should say the fans and media's radar very much. It got mentioned because Wentz, what's his first name?
Carson
Wentz was drafted by the Eagles, and it pissed off.
He skipped
Bradford.
like OTAs and stuff.
And said, and then he said, okay, I got to come in and play, and so you knew there was, there's a potential there, at least if you're,
And they gave Chase Daniels a decent amount of money too.
Exactly. So you knew that they were maybe likely to move somebody, and they're not going to move Wentz, and I'm sure the Vikings didn't want Daniels, and this happened. It's better than could have been expected, I think, unless you would get someone like Nick Foles. But you probably would have paid even more for it. Chili would have been down there telling Andy Reid, "No, 3 picks. I got to get that pick back for Moss that I gave up."
Ugh. Speaking of PTSD,
this is it's a good move. It's an exciting move. And Joe, you mentioned earlier, harkening back to Bradford last year, and they talk about his last
7
games that he just played very well and had great numbers and was playing at a very high level that if he gets in, and that's. I hope he doesn't take that long here, but that was his first year this first season at a new team. So there is some adjustment. But if that's what's in the offing for him, to start heating up while this team is heading maybe to a playoffs, that's a great thing.
I had heard that he played in a similar offense his first year in the NFL, similar to what we do here. If you're going to get any
Shermer back then,
if you're going to get anybody that you kind of like he said throw into the fire with 7-8 days, he's probably the perfect person considering what Skolt said about him having different coaches and different schemes every single year of his career. It's just a great move. It really is. It's
the best move they could have made, I think. I don't think they would have got much better than they did, and they could have got a heck of a lot worse.
Yeah, the Michael Vick thing, and like you said, it wasn't on the radar at all. There was Mike Glennon. I was actually really into getting Colin Kaepernick and wrote an article about that, saying if we're bringing Vick in, the rumor was that Vick was coming to Winter Park to murder a dog. But I said, why not get Kaepernick, considering he's just a younger version of Vick, running quarterback, controversy, the aforementioned dog murder. And then you have Kaepernick doing his nonviolent protest. So, I figured that was probably the best way to go.
I don't think that's the kind of guy those aren't the kind of guys that Zimmer wants to bring in.
I talked to somebody online about that, and I wondered about, I always think about a quote from, I think, Bud Grant that was essentially, he didn't care about a lot of stuff like that. It was his job to manage those personalities. Right. And I think Zimmer has the type of dominant personality to handle a lot of that stuff. People, I can't see anybody becoming a locker room cancer with Zimmer around.
Well, they also, in addition to that, they always say how they look for people with certain personalities that are really hard workers, that really love the game of football.
Intelligent.
And they probably don't have a lot of baggage. I'm not saying they don't bring anybody in that doesn't, but I think they spend a lot of time looking for a certain kind of attitude and play.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I mean, it was a perfect pick.
Yep.
And it's exciting. People are still excited. I think it was it's just amazing that we're sitting here still talking about the potential of the Super Bowl. It just really is.
Well, we need to talk about the rest of the team going forward, because we've spent how much time on a guy that might not even play in the season opener on Sunday. So, what do we think there, Skolt?
Well, in interjecting here quickly, this will be an exciting game to watch. And I made one little plug. I'll make one little more plug here. The Mermaid is our sponsor for doing this show, which we love to do, as well as Viking road games. The viewing parties are happening here at the Mermaid, so you can come. I will recommend for people, if you have the time, come about an half hour early to get your best seating and whatnot. It's no charge to get in, no charge to park. You're only paying for whatever food you buy, that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of fun. I've been hosting these parties. This is going to be my 9th year doing it. Have a blast doing it. So come on out and join us. Wear your purple. If you want to paint up, if you can do that, that's up to you. I'm not requiring it by any means, but wear the purple. Come powerfully purple, as I like to say. Ready to do the first down cheers, ready to sing Skol Vikings after we score, and we'll have a lot of fun with it. We do have 2 Minnesota Viking cheerleaders that will be joining us this Sunday too, guys. So if that helps influence, they'll bring their calendars to sell. Those are great gift items and whatnot. You can get pictures with them as well. Great photo ops. I always do. Trust me. It's a lot of fun. So come on out, and again, you can plan this for every road game. So make your plans right now. We got holiday games, on Halloween, on Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, all these games. We're going to be here, so you want to come check that all out. So, and checking out this game against Tennessee, that's going to be big. So that's what we're going to kind of segue into starting to talk about, as well as the team roster is set now. So what are we thinking of how things got set?
Well, it was tough cut downs for them. They had a lot of good ball players and not a lot of spots to take away. They wasn't long before the Vikings introduced their practice, or they made their cuts, that the Packers already scarfed one up. Jarrell Presley, that's all the Packers do is take Minnesota running backs. You got John Crockett from Totino Grace. Now they got Presley, who came off the Vikings roster. Presley had a good game last. He did. Preseason game with the 2 touchdowns, kind of an understatement. But so it was tough to lose him. I think there was a spot there for him and Ham, and and Ham got it because Packers took Presley. But there are not a lot of surprises, I don't think. I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, as two of us talked about anyway during most of the preseason, Mobo, interesting athlete, a lot of potential. He got cut, but he did make the practice squad. So, Joe, you're probably really pretty pleased about that, and I'll let you have a chance to talk about that for 5 seconds in a moment here. But, the receivers, we've talked about that a lot in preseason. There's so much quality there, and they made it. And Cordero made the cut, so he's on there. I expect that they'll be using him big time in the kick return game, of course. And he did have some good looks in the preseason. He had a couple of nice plays here and there. I was hoping he would have done a little more to really solidify his spot on there, but we'll see what it is. I mean, they've got plans for him, obviously, and maybe they weren't wanting to show us some of those too.
Yep, I agree with you there. He was, when I saw him in OTAs, he was featured at times, and then when camp came around, he was still getting some looks. Well, he got injured, and I think they wanted to bring him out and get him his feet wet in the preseason, the games, and then they wanted to put him away just to make sure he stayed healthy because he had went down hard on his shoulder. I know Joe was there to see it in Mankato, and I think that's something you could probably re-injure pretty easily. So I think they were just
when he went down, he got up and he threw his helmet at the fence. Like the reaction was like he tore his ACL.
We thought it was bad.
Yeah, I thought he broke his arm or something. I mean, he
knew he was injured
5 feet in the air backwards, and he made an amazing catch and landed on the ground hard. But I've been thinking, and I'm not, obviously I didn't come up with this theory on my own, but with the new rule with touchbacks going to the 25, do you think that a lot of teams are actually going to maybe squib kick a little bit because they don't want teams to start on the 25 and they would rather have their special teams cover a kick that isn't in the end zone?
Yeah, I don't have a good handle on that. When I heard Prefer talk, special teams coordinator Prefer talk down in Mankato, he said that it's going to be fun because they're going to do all kinds of different things. I think you'll see some squib kicking, like you said. I think you'll see some high kicks like we saw Walsh do, just to let the teams run down and try to get him inside the 20. It should be interesting. I think it adds a new wrinkle to it, but I really don't know what teams are going to do in general, and they certainly probably weren't going to show it during preseason, so everybody knew.
There's always unforeseen consequences to these rules.
Yeah,
and it'll be interesting. And one person, getting back to the practice squad and cuts and everything, that really stuck out to me was Willie Beavers. I don't understand that draft pick whatsoever. I guess as much as you put faith in Pro Football Focus, they had him rated basically like if it was a 1 to 100, he was like 110, like the worst tackle in the draft by far. Mm-hmm. I don't really see the point of him. I don't know what the thing was there.
To do anything they could to get some depth on that offensive line, and they're going to try a number of different things. Like I said before, that there wasn't a lot of room to get on to make this 53 because they were pretty solid. But there were times when people were talking about him that he was flashing and doing all right in camp and stuff. But I was actually, after hearing that, was just a little surprised that he was cut. But
4th round pick.
Yeah, and I think he's still on the practice squad. Maybe they didn't let him do a lot so that they didn't expose him either. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's just a huge project, and I think Sperano really is looking. There's a difference between the way Sperano runs the offensive line versus the previous coach, whose name is eluding me.
Davidson?
He's looking more, from what I've heard, for maulers, quote unquote, people that are aggressive and mean and kind of dictate the line and not so much technique. Mm-hmm. And I think Beavers is just physically impressive, but he has a lot to learn. It's similar to Bullringer.
Yep. He's got it. He's raw. He's powerful. He's maybe has an attitude, and you just have to harness it and see what you can do with him. You can't teach size. You can't teach that kind of thing. So if you got that kind of guy, you gotta see if you can make him into a ball player. It's the same thing with Mobo. He's got a wide receiver speed in the tight end's body, and he's just raw. And I think you didn't see much of him in the preseason
at all.
They probably thought he would have got scooped up.
That's exactly it. That's the prevailing theory that I've been hearing.
I can't argue with that. They do that. Coaching staffs will try to hide guys and try to sneak them through onto the practice squad. Now the thing is, anybody can still come and grab him if they want. Not he's sitting there, but they have to sign him to their regular season roster. But he's a project. He's got a ways to go too.
Well, wasn't that the prevailing theory that Joe Johnson was always kept talking about, which is why we kept hearing it? I just had to take that little shot there. Sorry, Joe, but it set it up. So good straight line that I was able to slam on. So thank you. I appreciate that. So
yes, I would love to take this opportunity to give Joe a little grief about Adam Thielen, but I won't. I'm above that kind of thing.
Will Adam be above Jarius Wright, though? You think
he already
even
is on the depth chart for whatever that reason, and I think that's going to be the case. I've seen it all along.
Yeah, Jarius had a decent game, of course, in the fourth. And he played a lot in that fourth game, which was he needed it because he hadn't got a lot of play in there. So it was good to see, and it was good to see that he basically did well, which was nice there too. A couple other guys on the practice squad I was happy to see make on there. We talked about Ham already, but that Toby Johnson.
Yeah.
Kind of a real unsung, and he just had a big game. And
he had a great fourth game.
That was fun to watch. That's the kind of thing when a guy does good, and
What that interception? A 365-pound guy diving full extension.
That's an athletic play for a big dude like that. So I was like, you gotta give him some props for that. So and that helped to make the squad good for him. And Sean Weatherly too. I think Stefan Weatherly had stepped up and made some plays from time to time. A lot of it was in the late stages of some of these preseason games, but just someone who I think he earned his way on there. So good for him, giving us a little depth on the line. And the practice squad, I like that whole setup because it gives guys who have the potential to develop that time and ability to do it without, they're not really eating up a roster spot, and they're, but they get that practice, and that's so valuable.
We always preface it by saying fourth preseason game, and I'm certainly guilty of that. But they're playing against the guys that they're supposed to be making plays against, and if they make plays against them, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Exactly. Yeah. So no, that was very, very good to see. So yeah, we like the way the team is shaping up. So how about going into this Tennessee game then? We talked a little bit about it, what we think the team how we'll come out of this. I mean, we're all expecting a win. Let's face it, that's the way it goes because they weren't, as you mentioned earlier, Joe, they weren't a great team last year. We were a division winner. This is a game we got to have.
Last year, 3-13. They lost their head coach about 6-7 games in. Ken Wisenhunt. Now Mike Mularkey gets brought up, and he's
Malarkey.
What did I say?
You said it right. I'm just saying that's
Malarkey.
It's, okay. Joe Biden.
And good.
Hey.
Political
science major.
So there's a lot of moving parts there. They got rid of 3 of their running backs early in the offseason and traded with Philadelphia again, who was obviously cleaning house. They traded for DeMarco Murray, and then they drafted Derrick Henry. So those 2 guys are supposed to split carries for them. So that's a revamped running game. Their defense, which was not too bad last year, is now they're good run stoppers, and so they're going to present a little challenge to us. And I figure they're going to load up the box against Adrian Peterson and try to make Sam/Hill. I'm calling him Sam Hill. Make those guys try to beat him. And as soon as they prove that they can go downfield and loosen up, AP will maybe have some room. But it should have been on paper before going in with Teddy that it should have been a win. Now it's going to be a little tougher. It's on the road. They're going to be fired up. Their season's not lost yet, so they'll still be in it. And Mariota's the quarterback's going to be a little bit better than last year. He played all 14. I guess he was injured 4 games last year, so he's going to be even better. What do you think, Joe?
I think that there is a tendency to, especially with the second game being against Green Bay at home, which is going to be just an event. I kind of, I feel bad that I'm so negative right now, but I just look back at the 49ers game last year that we kind of went into a little bit too cocky.
Boy, they were flat for that game.
Yeah, that was just awful.
20-3. I looked that up today. 20-3 they got beat.
Yeah,
this team that won the division.
I sponsored this big party out in White Bear Lake, and we got a 17-foot inflatable HD screen. And
did you guys hire Skolt? Did he come out? No.
Yeah, he showed up, but we didn't hire him. No, but it was so awful to just people sitting there like, what is going on? Adrian Peterson didn't even know where to line up half the time. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Zimmer obviously is conscious of that and is probably going to bring it up.
Didn't they go out a day early last year or something like that? Or they did something funky with their travel schedule that Zimmer felt like it threw them off or something.
Okay.
I
know what you mean.
It was the really late game on that Monday night.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. It's a perfect scenario. I mean, they're not very good, so it's a good warm up if Bradford ends up playing for the Packers game. But I think they'll be a little better than they were last year. I think Mariota is definitely a system quarterback, and the more time that he has, the better that he's going to do. So it'll be fun to see what his progression has been. I did find it odd that they traded for DeMarco Murray, seeing as I just didn't make a lot of sense to me as a team that's completely rebuilding.
But how old is he? He's not that. He's only a couple of years with.
Yeah, he's one of those running backs that falls prey to having a 350 carry season and then just not being able to do anything after that. A lot of guys break down that way.
And when he was doing that for the Cowboys, he was behind one of the best offensive
Exactly.
lines.
That's why Ezekiel Elliott, who hasn't played a game and who's having off-the-field problems, is still a top 5 fantasy pick.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. So, it'll be an interesting game. Hopefully Bradford does play. But, if Sean Hill plays, I do think that we'll see a lot of Thielen because they had a really great connection.
Yep.
In the
I think
preseason,
we'll see him regardless. Just that they're gonna get some shorter intermediate routes from Thielen, who knows where he's gonna be, and he's gonna be that sure-handed receiver.
Yeah,
in the middle.
he's a prototypical neo possession receiver.
Mm-hmm. I think you'll see some stuff from Cordero Patterson. Just to change it up, they'll maybe do a bubble screener. They'll do some crossing routes with him. Just different looks so that. They can loosen up that defensive front, which is really going to be set up to stop Peterson.
Patterson is a really interesting just topic in and of himself. I think he needs to come through this season. Considering I think that he's going to be a huge part of the offense. I think if he does go back to how he played as a rookie, which I think a lot of it is he hasn't gotten the opportunity. You look at the Rams game, the only game that AP played in 2014. Where Patterson had 96 yards and a touchdown. He broke a huge run. And then Peterson gets suspended, and they don't use Patterson in the backfield at all anymore. It didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Well, that was because he wasn't a professional. He dedicated himself to be a professional this year. He kind of finally figured out what it was. And I heard all these stories about him not knowing the plays, not lining up in the right spot, not being in the right spot. And when you've got a young quarterback like Bridgewater was, and you're trying to teach him the offense, he gall darn better have receivers that are going to be in the right spot, because that's just going to delay his development. So I think that
you hear that he'd run it was a 10-yard out and he'd run 12 yards and 8 yards. And
I'm sorry, in the NFL that you can't have that.
And I think it does the fact that he did make the team after they didn't pick up his 5th-year option and after the Spielman and Zimmer were really talking him up early before he got injured, which I know you had said off air that maybe they were trying to build him up for a trade, which we could also talk about the rumor about Wright getting traded. But no, I think that they have big plans for Patterson this year, and I think they're going to run specific plays for him.
Bigger than we've seen in the past.
For sure. And he's going to be the X factor for the team, and it's pretty exciting.
Well, and Cordero certainly can be. Part of when you think back, you mentioned that St. Louis game where he had the big runs. Some of his both value, but maybe to his discredit too, his athletic ability is so good. Some of those, when you brought that up, I'm still picturing some of those runs, and some of those were just fantastic athletic plays where it was going to go this amount, and then it's a matter of what else did he open up. It wasn't because there were all these downfield blockers setting him up and stuff. It's just his phenomenal athletic ability. He made some good plays. He juked. He has the speed and the strength to be able to go for it. So he opened up more holes, and I think he depended too much on that to not learn to run the 10-yard route on a 12 instead of 12 or instead of 8 or whatever the case may be. And, who knows? Maturity certainly is a factor in the whole play too. But his ability is there, and if he's got that harness now, that is going to be huge. So another thing I'm thinking about, though, going into this Tennessee game is, Joe, you just mentioned, we've got the Green Bay game right after that. How much offense we show, depending on who the quarterback is too, they're probably going to keep something back because they don't want to put something on tape for Green Bay to see ahead of time.
They won't throw the whole playbook out there, but they're gonna have plenty of. Well, that's true. We got the potential of Bradford going, so it's going to be restricted to begin with. Bradford plays, you're only going to see part of it,
Right.
But they'll have something up their sleeve and a new game plan for the Packers when they come in. But you're going to see everything they got or they can do against Tennessee because they can't afford it. That's just as big a game. They can't afford to lose that.
Oh yeah, no, you can't lose. I heard the comment the other day, which is like kind of duh. In the NFL, you got to win as many games as possible. Well, of course. I mean, in all sports, you're out there to win. But because you're playing 16 games, not 80 or 162,
huge.
Every game it's so much more critical, and especially those against the teams that you're favorite to win against.
Right.
Because when you're playing the tougher teams, when you're playing at Carolina, or other playoff quality teams, those are games you're not generally going to win all of them, and so you have to be able to take as many of those as possible.
You make a good point. I could have seen them thinking about this game against the first game against Tennessee as almost another preseason game in preparation for the Packer game. You could almost see that, but now with Teddy down, I don't think they'll view it that way. Not that they ever would, but I don't think anybody can view it that way. I think they got to have that win. That's
exactly. And as you alluded to, the San Francisco game last year, yeah, for whatever reason that we were so flat, whether if there was any overconfidence, the lateness because it was the second Monday night game, which was really late, and that I remember as a fan that felt real funky.
Yeah.
I was doing one of my viewing parties, not the one that Joe was doing. Yeah. You want me to come out? You got to pay Joe. So. but but it was real funky, and it was just something was off there. And
that's as flat as we've ever seen a Mike Zimmer team, and I
pretty much
expect to ever see again.
Well, and great point, a Mike Zimmer team. I cannot fathom this Mike Zimmer team being that flat again against Tennessee. Just not a chance.
Yeah.
That was the worst game of football I've ever witnessed. It wasn't. It was like they were.
Don't sugarcoat it, Joe. Let them have it.
They were like. It was like they were practicing. Like they didn't know.
It was. And that's the one thing that one common denominator there is you got AP who has not taken a snap in the preseason.
Yeah.
And he looked lost early on in that game.
And that's a big part of losing Teddy too. I mean, they brought in Shermer and Sperano to kind of pass the torch to Teddy. And AP and kind of get him to learn how to run out of the shotgun, and they're not going to do that anymore.
Yeah, now they're going to have the all Oklahoma backfield.
And it's probably better for AP because he's going to get his 8-yard head start.
Yeah, he can run on instinct rather than having to think before he does whatever he has to do. But they're also going to have to do some get a short passing game going and get somebody to throw some passes out of the backfield, play action just to get that defensive line off of them. I think that's a huge thing. If they can bust, AP out and open things up, and you might see a really good game from them.
When it comes to short passing, too, you got to think about McKinnon.
Right, absolutely. He's going to get run. He is definitely going to get run this season.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be a good change of pace guy. He's a good blocker, and looks just really quick. Like he's gotten faster. I know it's preseason, but he just looks amazing.
One thing we haven't talked about is the defense yet, and I think we all kind of take them for granted because top 5 defense. We keep hearing that, keep saying that, but I'm looking for a big game from them. There's got to be some pent up anger out of the situation that was dealt this team, and they're going to be ready to just unleash and go after it. And you got Everson Griffith, who hasn't played for the last couple games. Can't wait to see him go nuts and go after Marcus.
It's going to be, hopefully they're going to rally around Teddy and use that as, something to...
That's what Patterson told me. I was talking to him about Sean Hill the other day, and I said, is it tough to, when not only, the NFL teaches next man up theory, so someone else steps in and takes over. I said, isn't that a little bit tougher when it's someone you've been working with and someone you're friends with, and he says yes, it is harder, but and he says that's what this whole thing goes. Everything we do out here is for Teddy. We're doing this for Teddy. So I think that is kind of a mindset.
Is everyone pretty much healthy now in the defense? Is Kendricks going to play?
Kendricks has been practicing. Saw him out there Monday, and Everson's back. Sharif is back. Rhodes had his uniform on yesterday.
Okay.
The only guy I saw on the sidelines, and I didn't take a complete roll call, but Michael Pruitt was still still out and injured. So
yeah, I think he's out 3 to 4 weeks, or 6 to 7. I don't remember.
Red Ellison was out there catching passes from Bradford and actually looked good running. So that was really nice to see.
Yeah.
David Morgan might not appreciate it because it pushes him down the ways a little further, but you want to have Ellison back because he knows how to make that offense.
He's a Swiss Army knife.
Swiss Army knife, yes, he does. So
it'll be a good game. I think that it's going to show it's going to dictate the type of game and team that we're going to be this season. I think seeing the defense and controlling, field position and everything, I think it'll be a good, like you said, it's almost like a preseason game and a rehearsal for the real deal, and it's gonna be a great game.
Yeah, but it's not a preseason game, so they have to, as we've been alluding to, they've got to take this serious. They got to get that first W in the column, because you can't come home 0-1. You have to come home 1-0, ready to kick off the Purple Palace with that huge event, to go on strong, because that's a division game. And
where's that?
It's Paisley Park, I think.
I gotta bring my sword. I know. I have to start bringing my sword to some of these podcasts to maybe make the points a little bit sharper. But it's that's going to be such a huge game, which I know next week we'll be talking at length about, because that's going to be such a huge game to preview and talk about and discuss after our first game, what we've seen going into that, how sharp Adrian's going to be, after the first game, after Tennessee. That's one of my things that we alluded to last year. He didn't play in that, and so he was really flat against Frisco. He can't be. He's got to come out strong and sharp.
And he's got to really show that he's got ball security under control.
Mm-hmm.
That
I do expect that he will. I mean, because of some of the fumbles last year, to me, he seems to be the guy who that's come up again, because it came up once a few years back.
Yeah, and
he took it serious, and that just went away.
Essentially, he fixed it. Then he got suspended, and he came back and started fumbling again. Right. And I know he worked this offseason with Melvin Gordon, with somebody on ball security, so that's good. I mean, it's kind of. People harp on AP because he doesn't play in the preseason, and then he comes out, like in the San Francisco game last year, and didn't know really where to line up, or he has issues with ball security. So it's not necessarily that he's above practice, but it'll be nice to see how he plays, and if he's still the same old AP when he's going to turn 32 this season.
Yeah, well, I sure hope so. I would love to see him bust out for a big, strong ground game. Because of course it would keep us on the field, it would keep the offense moving.
Yeah.
Whoever's playing QB, a lot less pressure on them that way. Everybody enjoys it, and as an AP fan, I want to see him gain a lot of yards and start climbing those career ladders. We'll talk about some of that stuff as he moves throughout the.
And it seemed like last year we brought teams down to our level when we played them a lot. Even Seattle, who was on fire, granted it was freezing, only scored, 10, 12 points. I don't remember. I blacked out. So it'll be interesting.
Minus 6 degrees is pretty cold. I was there. I know.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. But it'll be nice to see if that's still the case this year. I think the defense has had another offseason to get acclimated to Zimmer's defense. Everyone seems to be healthy. We're completely stacked on defense. I'm pretty much more excited to watch the defense than I am the offense, except for Sam Bradford, I guess.
Well, yeah, and agreed. I want to see. We talked a little bit about Danielle Hunter early on, and didn't see a lot of him. I mean, he was in on some plays and stuff, but
I saw a picture of his forearm, and he is so jacked. It's like CGI. Like his veins are bulging out. I don't know if he grew up next to some sort of power plant, but the dude is amazing.
I want to see him smacking those forearms, though, pushing guards and tackles away and getting to quarterbacks and running backs behind the backfield and, making those tackles. That's, he's had some hype, and
he had 6 sacks last year, and he barely played.
This is year 2. So what does he do now? He needs to ascend from that. So we want to see him grow and ascend to push ropes in a little bit too. Not that it's necessary, but
and you look at Hunter and where we drafted him. Was it 2nd round, 3rd round? Just looking at a lot of the players that we have on our team, and where we drafted them,
Yeah.
And I saw a stat just the other day that there is more unsigned free agents playing in the NFL right now than first and second round picks combined. And I think,
481 to 480.
yeah, so I think that shows that, again, bringing it full circle at the end of this, the Bradford trade isn't that painful. Spielman knows how to draft first round talent, and I think that it was a great move, and we're going to have a great game.
We'll definitely want to look forward to it. Again, I invite you all fans to come out and join us here at the Mermaid for this game and all the road games, of course, that will be here. This kind of ends our 3D preseason previews because after this, it's going to be all regular season live shows.
Yay!
Here from the Mermaid, Joe and Skolt on 3 Deep.